No.
I'm kidding.
No.
Yeah. All right. Now then, well, I got my camera set up here so that they'll be all of the same. All right. Can that thing find me? Yeah, it can. Okay. Now then, I'm going to tell you about your answers here. Somebody read the first question for me. Can you read the first question? Or do you want me to read the first question? I can read the first question if somebody wants to. On the 2.7 liter engine, you need to apply sealant where? Where do you need to apply sealant?
Where the oil pan and timing cover gasket meet.
Where the oil pan and a timing cover gasket meet. Okay, that's up there. Where you're most likely to have a little oil seepage, you want to combat that. On a 3.2 liter engine, the main bearing number on the block is a 3 and the letter on the crankshaft counterweight is a C. What is the bearing grade?
Standard.
Number 2. That's a C, right? You got that? Did you understand how that fitting procedure was working?
Yeah. Good way.
Technician A says the 2.7 liter engine, the groove on the primary chain tensioner disappears when the chain is worn.
Mm-hmm.
Technician B says that, what? What'd you say? You right about that? On the 2.7 liter engine, the groove on the primary... Yeah. Technician B says the wear occurs as the tensioner extends and the groove becomes visible. As wear occurs, the tensioner extends and the groove becomes visible.
Where's the B?
That's a boy. B. There is a difference between the what on early and late build engines. The primary chain tensioners, the secondary chain tensioners, the timing belts, and the timing belt tensioners.
Let's see, I think.
That's actually going to be. That's going to be a B. Going to be B. At top dead center on the exhaust stroke, the intake cam secondary chain sprocket timing mark should be how many degrees from the cylinder head cover sealing surface and how many pins from the marks on the exhaust cam sprockets? That is a confusing question,
That's
isn't it?
C.
Huh? Wow, you're just as sharp as a tack. 90, it's supposed to be 90 degrees from the cylinder head curve and 12 pins from the marks on the exhaust cam sprockets. Number 6. To arm the primary chain tensioner, what do you do? To arm the primary chain tensioner, what do you do?
Primary. You pull that pin. Wait. Primary chain. That's
You did one, didn't you? Don't you supposed to pry the tensioner arm toward the tensioner? You saw that in a picture. I got a picture of them doing that in here.
That's what I put.
That's what you put?
That'd be the
now you got to pull that pin out.
Well, there was a pin that you put in there to hold it. And also, some of them have got a little ratchet mechanism that you got to flip a little chain link looking thing around. There was let me tell this brief little story here because this is pretty important. There was a car that came in here that was an Oldsmobile Alero. And it was a 99 model. And they went to the dealership and they said, we've got a noise. And what happens is when you rev it up and you let it come back to a kind of a float, you'd hear a rattling noise coming out of the engine. And the dealership put a catalytic converter on it. And then, I don't know if it made a difference, I guess, for a day or two. And then they went back and we're hearing this again. And the dealership says, well, get out of here with your bad self. We don't want to see you no more in here. So ran them off. And they were willing to pay to get it fixed. You know, it wasn't under warranty. The car had 100,000 miles on it. And so you could get that stethoscope and listen to this thing while it was doing it. You get somebody to put it in a float and it would make a rattling noise. You could not touch that engine anywhere with that probe and hear where that was coming from. But it was noisy. I mean, you could hear it standing outside the car, inside the car, everywhere. But you screw the end off the stethoscope and use it for a listening pipe. It was really, really loud coming from the oil pan area. Well, what's in the oil pan on that one? It's got a balance shaft that the oil pump is built into in there. It's actually driven off of the crankshaft with a chain, and there's a little special tool you got to line up the balancer shafts and all that kind of stuff. And that thing makes racket. I mean, sometimes it makes racket. I did some research on it, and even at the Cadillac place, a guy over there where they do Oldsmobiles and all, he said in Dothan, he says, yeah, we have to replace those for noises like that. But you have to have that little tensioner set on the chain that drives that thing perfectly. and they say get a 40 thousandths brass feeler gauge, and you're going to put it between the tensioner and the chain, and you're going to snug that thing up. Then you're going to remove the feeler gauge, and the tension will be just right. That's weird, isn't it? But you ever look for a 40 thousandths brass feeler gauge? Nobody makes one. Not even Snap-on. You cannot get a 40 thousandths brass feeler gauge.
Why they got to be brass?
Because it's more flexible than steel. All right, because the steel, it's got to have a little shape to it. You know what I used? I cut a piece out of an antifreeze jug, and I mic'd it, and it was 40 thousandths, and so I used it. I mean, what can you do? So we put that thing back together, and that thing was just as quiet as it could be for about a month, and then it started making noise again. And so it came back in here, but the noise was coming from a different place. And so what we found out was, the second time it started making the noise, was that the timing chain tensioner was sticking and letting the timing chain slap and rattle. So we put a timing chain tensioner on it, and it was a better design. We actually, some smart aleck came up with the idea that this one here was basically, you could just push it in and out with your finger. It was spring-loaded, but oil pushed it. That one, the one that the earlier ones had a ratchet on them, so that when they ratchet it out, you had to release them to ratchet them back in when you were putting a chain on it. Put one of those on there, you never had any more trouble with it. So we put one of those on there. And that took care of that. But then it came back about a month later with another noise. And this one was coming from the other end of the engine. And you could put your stethoscope in there. You weren't hearing it from the oil pan. You weren't hearing it up front like you were with the timing. You were hearing it from the flywheel. It done cracked the dadgum flywheel. This same car had 3 different noises in it, and every time we did anything, it would go away for a while, and when it came back, you'd think, well, it's the same noise again. But it had 3 different noises. Off and on, we worked on that doggone thing for several months, as it was coming and going. But anyway, we finally got it all straightened out. Did you know they're still driving that car? But it was a bear. I mean, I'm telling you, that was one of them things where you just want to say, I think I'm in the wrong business. I'm going to go into the house, You ever have one of those, Brandon? You just say, this thing is, it's just smacking me around, man. I can't figure out what's going on with this thing. And the students were just, boy, they were troopers. All that. And, they really were. But you know what? The 2 guys that I put on that car made it through it. And both of those guys were really tough and really solid and never complained and kept working on it if they were done with it. And both of them were ex-military like Sean. But, that kind of thing is, they had to be really tough to stay on it. And they worked and worked and worked on it, and they got through with it. And when they got through, it was right. But anyway, sometimes you just got to back off and look at it from farther away. Which of the following statements is about the 2.7 liter engine rocker arms and lash adjusters is true? You're supposed to remove them with 8215 and 8216. You can replace them separately, store lash adjusters in an upright position. All of the above. All of the above is true. That's number 7, right? Okay. Technician A says the 3.2 liter engine camshaft used 3 lobes per cylinder. Technician B says the 2.7 cams are interchangeable. Who's right about that? Huh? Does anybody know? Archie, you seem to know most of the answer. What do you think?
They're different from cam.
Huh? What? Number 8.
Somebody else had to have more answers.
They're not interchangeable. I know that.
That's A.
You got some answers?
3 lobes per cylinder. Which of the following features is found with a 3.2 and 3.5 engines, but not with 2.7 liter engines?
Probably cool and good.
Those are local. I don't know.
Is it the engine oil cooler, the coil-on plug, the tapered seat? It's freewheeling. The 3.2 and the 3.5 will not bend valves if they jump time. The 2.7 will.
Non-interference.
Yeah, non-interference engine.
That's pretty.
There's actually books you can buy that will tell you exhaustively which engines are interference engines and which engines aren't. But, well, it will if you look up the engine and it gives you cautions about damaging the valve. You can figure it out. But I'm talking about it. All it does is it just lists it. As the engine is listed, it will tell you this is freewheeling, this is not. I mean, it's a long list.
Mitchell's got a tab name actually pushed for
Yeah,
engines.
yeah, pretty cool. And that's a good feature for that thing. Coolant bleed valve on the 2.7 engine is located on what? The water outlet connector. Let me tell you something else, guys. You know what we're talking about? Now listen to this very carefully too. You know, I was telling you how it's got the two holes that a water pump can leak out of, one by the thermostat housing, one in the valley. It's fill the valley up. Sometimes I have seen people that would misdiagnose a water pump because there would be this little coolant outlet thing right up on the very top of the engine. You'd think that's where the thermostat's at, but it's not. The thermostat housing is on the side of the block down there. All right, they had that thing. It will leak. That gasket around that thing will leak, and it will fill that valley up, and it'll rain all over the place. So just because you got water raining everywhere doesn't mean it's the water pump. You need to make darn sure that you pressure test it and you know where that water's coming from. If the valley's filling up, it could be draining from around that little assembly that's got the bleeder valve on it. And I can probably show you that the next time Donna Roberts gets or has a car in here for oil
I
change.
put water pump on this.
Yeah. On which one?
Dodge Dakota.
Oh, yeah. Dodge Dakotas are not. How much you pay?
I think it was like 2.8 hours.
2.8. How long did it take you to do it?
About an hour and a half.
Hour and a half. How much money did you make out of that hour and a half? 2.8 is what? What's 2.8 times 28? That's pretty good, isn't it? Yeah. That's about $80, isn't it? Come on. What is it?
$78.
70. What did I say? About $80, right? Okay, so he made that, and he made $78 in an hour and a half. That ain't too bad. That's not shabby at all, is
I
it?
got to put a power steering pump and a steering gearbox on a big Dodge.
Yeah. And
You're
you're like
actually
that.
getting more per hour than I was getting when I left Dodge as a Gold Star Master Tech
Yeah.
with Dodge. I was making $26.75 an hour flat rate
Yeah.
as a transmission man.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Richard, tell him the story about when you told me.
That's it. When I called him, I said, "What are you going to pay him?" He said, "Well, we figured we'd pay him $28 an hour commission." And I said, "That sounds pretty good." I didn't mention it on the. Say it out loud. I was on the phone, and so I hung up. Wes was sitting there. He goes, "What do you say he's going to pay me?" I said, $28 an hour. He said, "Shut up." That was
What's
pretty
their
good.
labor rate?
I think like $65 an hour.
Yeah,
That's awesome. I mean,
they're paying him
this,
generous.
This
Yeah.
industry used to be that it was 50-50, which was a very fair split. Then you started getting greedy dealership owners,
Yep.
and now you're lucky if you get 25%.
Yeah.
Like he's really good. He'll like some of the stuff is like it'll say 6 hours, but he knows it takes him 3 hours to do it, and he'll do it for 3 hours. Yeah,
So he tries to be fair to the customer,
Right.
so he didn't, tear them up, and that, which is, but people expect that in a small town. That's part of the deal on that.
unless he's the guy is a hole and
Yeah.
keeps coming back for stupid stuff.
Now, what I'm going to tell you right now, let me give you something. Let me show you this. And we talked about this a little bit before. I was we were pulling the thermostat. The block on this 2.7 is aluminum, right? Or in other words, the thermostat, how it goes in there, has got 3 bolts, and it's aluminum. And this one guy was working on. He was trying to work instead of dropping the air conditioner compressor off this car. And this was Nermy's car, that 04 Sebring convertible, the gray one that he drives. And he's going to put the thermostat. It came in there to begin with, and it was running too cold. If it's running too cold, the thermostat is going to be the issue. I mean, it's all there to it. It'll throw you a PO 128, a PO 125, and things running bone cold. The heater don't work worth the toot and all that. You got to put a thermostat in it. Well, the thing about it is with thermostats nowadays, and it's been this way for a long time. I used to put 2 or 3 thermostats in there to get one good one. I don't know why. You put it in there, it still runs cold. You put it in another one, it still runs cold. Finally, you get a good one that runs warm. We pulled one out of my Jeep. We dropped it in. It was running like 100 degrees, 120 degrees. Dropped it in boiling water. It didn't open until 210. But I said, well, we already got it out. Let's put a thermostat in anyway. And that's running normal. So just weird, actually checking it into boiling water. There's a worksheet I give out on that, but that's a sort of an exercise in futility. When you got it out, let's go ahead and put it in there. What we have done is if it will not open and you got one that's overheating and the thermostat won't open, you've pinpointed the cause of your concern. You got that?
Yep.
If it will not open, you've pinpointed the cause. And we've had that here too. We've had a Chrysler product that was running too hot. Everything else was fine on it. Pull the thermostat in there, drop it in there, and the thing was just at a high rolling boil, and the thermostat still just closed as tight as a hat man. You don't usually see that anymore. We used to see them stuck closed all the time. Now more often than not, the spring comes apart, or they open too soon because the spring got weak. They may look good, but open too soon. Anyway, he pulls this one out, and he's going to put the thermostat in there. And well, we put a thermostat in there, and Nermy said, "Hey, it's running too cold again." I said, "Well, I got to put another thermostat in it." So this guy's working on it, fooled around trying to. He said the threads in that hole, in one of these holes, is not good. I mean, it's 6 millimeter, 1.0 thread pitch holes, and it's a little thin aluminum block on the side. So anyway, he manages to somehow or another. He gets the tap in there, and he's trying to work without moving the air conditioner compressor out of the way, and he breaks the tap off in the hole. Pop. What are we going to do? I mean, we can't just put the thermostat on with 2 bolts. It's going to leak. We can't throw the car in the gully because the engine's worth more than the car is running, So what are we going to do? That's a $1,700 engine. I mean, what are you going to do with this? Okay, so we've got this thermostat. I mean, we got this hole, and it broke off in there. We've got a tap, and it looks like this. And actually, I think it's like that. Make me sick. Just absolutely make me sick. This is a small thing. So what do you do? How you can get that out of there? Remember now, this is aluminum, and that tap, you cannot drill a tap. Forget it. If you try to drill a tap with a drill bit, the drill bit is going to bounce around and jitter on the tap, and the tap's going to go, oh, you can't even scratch me with that stupid drill bit, you jerk. That's what it does. The taps are super hard. But we got it out of there.
Use a tiny ended punch.
Well, that sounds good, but it don't work. What we did, and this is going to sound kind of silly, but we found a drill bit that was perfectly sized like that, and we drilled like this.
I've had to do that.
We drill it just like that. And so what we wound up with was something that looked like that. All right, now you take that broke off tap, and all you got to do is turn it just a little bit, and it rattles into those holes, and you just pull it right on out of there. Then we get a helicoil. We bore it out the size of the helicoil. Of course, this looks bigger than it was on the car. We used a teeny little tiny bit. It was smaller than a 1/8. But anyway, you bring that thing out. We put a 6 millimeter helicoil in it, and we were good to go. I mean, that was a dicey situation, but what you need to do when you're in a situation like that is make a wise decision. You know what I mean? Don't do something stupid that's going to make the problem worse than it was. And boy, I tell you what, it'll make your hair turn gray, it's just, I wrote about it. It was fun.
Now, they did make a socket set that removes broken taps. Got little 4 fingers on them.
Yep.
With a stick in there that fits in those little things.
Yep.
But if it's broke off crooked,
yeah,
you got no choice.
Yeah, it was
you just got in there and it broke.
I don't know if anybody that's ever made any kind of a tool that's supposed to fix problems like that always works. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, it's like these that I've got out there for, the lock and lug nuts is gone. Let's say the key's gone. Well, some yo-yo left it out of the car eons ago, and you don't know when it was you're trying to take it off. And so, how do you get a lock and lug nut out if the doggone thing is flat on the outside with this fluted cut for your tool, and it's smooth? We used to have a whole kit that had all of the different patterns in it at Ford Place, at least for Fords. But you can't have it. So we got a special set of tools over there that you drive it up on that thing really tight, and it's tapered, and it grabs the outside of it. They also make some that sort of like a external easy out. They'll bite it. But we had the ones on one of these cars, and I can't remember who was working on that car, but it was a car I remember it was Eric Dunn's car. It had some lock and lug nuts on it that were way up in a hole, and they were little tiny things. And one of them was, and he bought the car, and nobody, who in the Sound Mill has ever seen the lock and lug nut thing again? And so what we did was we got an old 9/16 socket, and we ground it around the outside to make it a little bit thinner, and drove that thing on there real hard, and we managed to break them loose and get them out of there. You just got to take every situation and use your gumption to get it past. Get past these difficult situations. Because what we're all about here is solving problems, isn't it? And problem-solving skills in this business, what we don't need is to have somebody that... did you ever hire anybody to work with you in your shop?
Gosh, I've had, the 2 shops I had in Greencoat, I had about 11 or 12 guys at one time.
Okay, and so they wanted to... Did you ever have anybody whose hand you had to hold? Couldn't do anything?
Not for long.
Yeah. You let them go. That's what you do, see? I mean, they don't want to have to hold a hand, Occasionally you may need some help, but somebody don't want to have to go over and turn the bolts. The guy over here at this shop across from the pizza place, He's got a problem because that's where Tyler was working, and I guess I don't know if he's over there still or
I
not.
think so.
I don't think he wears there anymore. I haven't seen him.
Yeah, but anyway, the point is that guy doesn't want anybody whose hand he has to hold.
Right.
He says everybody he hires, he's got to hold their dadgum hand. He said, when I tell somebody to get something done, I want it done. I don't want to have to say, tell them I put a belt on that car, and then I've got to go over there 4 or 5 times and tell them every move to make to put a belt on or something.
Right.
I need somebody that can at least do belts and radiator hoses and stuff like that without me having to hold their doggone hand. And he's having a booger of a time finding anybody.
Marcus had to help me a lot, but I mean, it's because it's been big jobs and nothing that I've ever seen before.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he likes that. The people at when I used to work over there at the dealership, people would come over there and they would say, how do I do this job? And I was trying to do my work. I didn't mind helping somebody out occasionally, but I mean, it seemed like every time you turn around, if you had the answer for somebody, here they'd come trotting over there every time you turn around when you do the work for them, and so they could get flagged all their big money, and this business about helping me find this bolt that I lost and all that kind of stuff. I don't have time for that. Anybody can do that. You can find the bolt that you lost. But they want somebody to come find it for them because it's a problem that they're frustrated about. But I would say, why do you need help with that? They say, well, I've never done one like this before. And I say, well, every job that I ever done, there was a time when I had never done one before. But I mean, if you're self-reliant, and I'll tell you guys, here's a little thing you can do. How many of you guys and girls, when you sign your name, how many of you underline it in some way?
Huh?
When you sign your name, do you underline it? Whenever I sign my name, and this is the way it is. When I sign my name, and I do this.
Those are a bunch of scratches.
See, that's not exactly my signature. My wife corrects that, but she calls it the fish. But I underline it.
Wow.
And I just do. And if you're going to watch this, you watch people, and I took a course on handwriting analysis and read a book about it, and all that sort of stuff. The people that underline their name when they sign it are always self-reliant people that will not ask for help unless they absolutely have to have it.
Oh, so I guess we're all going to ask for help now.
Yeah. But, well, you do a lot. But,
I didn't ask you for help yesterday.
yeah. Well, you weren't doing anything yesterday except wandering around the shop. The Blazer didn't get anything done to it. But you also we did fix the filter on the transmission in the Dodge truck. There's a little seal that's supposed to be driven up in there real tight where it fits, and then the filter slides up in it. And I don't know who did that. It's a not me thing, I think. But somebody just stuck the seal on the filter and tried to cram it up in there, and it won't work like that. That's why it wouldn't move, because it couldn't get any oil, you see. I've actually when I was trying to figure out why one wouldn't move before and pull the pan, I started telling him to do this. I said, let's pull the pan. Now let's crank it up without the pan on it and see if it will grab this piece of paper, just to see if the pump's got suction, And on that one, we started to do that. But Archie noticed that the filter was dangling and all that. Anyway, but
you talk about not making things worse. When we came to like lug nuts, I used to on the steel rims. It was great. I'd just take the lug nut, grab the welder, and weld an actual like a lug nut on there and unscrew it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I was young and doing. All of a sudden, we had a car come in there, and I'm about to do it. This car had magnesium rims.
Yeah, they'll catch fire.
Thank God the old timer was looking out for me.
Yeah, magnesium will burn like paper if you get it started. You know that?
Yeah.
It looks like aluminum, but it'll catch fire.
Termite wood.
Like a Volkswagen engine block. You set a Volkswagen engine block on fire, it'll burn.
Yeah.
But my one time the shop foreman, service manager came to me. He said, "We got this Lincoln here, and we've got the socket that's supposed to fit this lock and lug nut, but the lock and lug nut won't move. And we're afraid we're going to strip it out. We'll get out of there with nothing. Can you get this out of here for me?" And I just looked over there at it, and I said, "I can have it out of there for you in about 15 seconds. And something my dad taught me a long time ago that a lot of people know. I got this aluminum drift that I had, and I put it against that lug nut, and I got my big hammer, and I went, bam! And then I just hit it straight in one time, good and hard. And because it's tapered, it kind of has a tendency to loosen it up. And I put the tool on it, and you can just about screw it out with your fingers. Just sometimes, just this least little thing is just real quick and easy, And my dad used to say, whenever you got one that won't move, a lug nut won't do, just whack it on the end just as hard as you can hit it, and it'll screw out of there usually. This is the way it works. And sometimes it's hard to hit it, like that. But it works better if it's a lug bolt than it does a lug nut because you've always got a nice flat place to hit. But don't hit a lug stud like that with something like a hammer because you'll ding it What you want to do, yeah, well, no, you don't want to knock it out. You don't want to mess up the thread. Hit it with something soft like a piece of aluminum or something that it won't damage the threads, but it will, be really particular about that. Anyway, and that finishes our test up for today.